Hey guys, Titanic 1912 here, and welcome to part 1 of 10 of Titanic 110. And the story of the ocean liner from the beginning to the end. And for part 1, we'll be discussing the construction of Titanic. Titanic was built between 1909 and 1911 at Harland and Wolff Shipyard. Her keel was laid down on March 31st, 1909, and she took about 26 months to build. Hold it. Her hull was made up of 2,000 single-piece plates made of rolled steel plate, usually up to 6 feet wide and 30 feet long, weighing between 2.5 and 3 tons apiece. Their thickness varied from 1 inch to 1.5 inches. They were laid in an overlapping fashion from the keel to the bilge. Above that point they were laid in the in and out fashion, where straight plating was applied in bands with the gaps covered by the outstrakes overlapping on the edges. Commercial oxy-fuel and electric arc welding methods were still in their infancy. So the hull was held together with over 3 million iron and steel rivets, which on their own weighed 1,200 tons. They were fitted using hydraulic machines or were hammered in by hand. And the steel plate used for the ship was subject to being especially brittle and cold. By the standards of the time, the steel plate's quality was good, not faulty, but that it was inferior to what would be used for shipbuilding purposes in later decades, owing to advances in the metallurgy of steelmaking. Titanic's 2 anchors and 1 center anchor were among the last things to be fitted before her launch. They themselves were a challenge to make, with the center anchor being the largest ever forged by hand, weighing nearly 16 tons. 20 horses were needed to haul the entire center anchor by wagon. They took it from Netherton to the Dudley railway station 2 miles away. From there it was shipped by rail to Fleetwood before being loaded aboard a ship and sent to Belfast. The work of constructing Titanic was difficult and dangerous. 15,000 men worked at Harland and Wolff at the time, and safety precautions were rudimentary at best. A lot of the work was carried out without equipment like hard hats or hand guards. As a result, 246 people were injured during Titanic's construction, 28 of those being severe injuries such as severed arms or crushed legs. 6 people died on the ship while it was being constructed and fitted out, and another 2 died in the shipyard workshops and sheds. Just before the launch, a worker was killed when a piece of wood fell on him. Titanic was launched at 12:15 p.m. on May 31st, 1911. 22 tons of soap and tallow were spread on the shipway to allow it to slide easily into the River Lagan. The ship was not formally named at this point. It was instead towed to a fitting out berth, and over the course of the next year, the engines, funnel, and superstructure were installed, and her interior was fitted out. Her sea trials began on April 2nd, 1912, and finished 8 days, which was just 2 days after her fitting out, and 8 days before she was due to leave Southampton on her maiden voyage. The trials were delayed due to bad weather, but by Monday morning it was clear and fair. No domestic staff appeared to have been on board. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, was. The sea trials consisted of a number of tests of her handling characteristics, and out in Belfast Lough, and then in the open waters of the Irish Sea. Over the course of about 12 hours, Titanic has sailed at different speeds. Her turning ability was tested, and a crash stop was performed in which the engines were reversed full ahead to full astern, bringing her to a complete stop in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. During its sea trials, it covered a distance of about 80 nautical miles, averaging 18 knots, and reaching a maximum speed of just under 21 knots. At about 7 p.m., when she returned to Belfast, the surveyor signed an agreement and account of voyages and crew, valid for 12 months, which declared the ship seaworthy. An hour later, Titanic departed Belfast for Southampton, 570 nautical miles. After about 28 hours, she arrived at about midnight on April 4th and was towed to the port's berth 44, ready for the arrival of her passengers and the remainder of her crew. Titanic's construction is fascinating, as you have heard me now relay the entire story. Titanic was constructed in tandem with her sister ship Olympic, though Olympic was finished slightly sooner. Olympic would actually be one of the reasons Titanic's voyage was delayed, though I'll touch on that in part 2, coming out tomorrow. For now, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. The next installment of Titanic 110. Goodbye.